Racism is okay if it's to fictional groups, ends up also being racist to real-world groups too. So this is a bit of an oof, at least in my opinion. This involves me and another player who I will name Gina, from a very short-lived campaign. This started out with me making a drow character who was paladin. That mostly helped dwarves and other interested groups safely navigate the Underdark and other subterranean areas. My clearly not evil drow character apparently did not sit well with Gina, who aired her grievances that my character was, quote, absurd because drow are evil and worship demons. I tried to explain to Gina that sure, while the worship of Lolth is the dominant form of worship in the Underdark, that doesn't mean that all drow are worshippers of her. Like Christianity may be the dominant religion of the United States, but that does not mean every American is a Bible thumper. I also mentioned that it's racist to assume an entire race is inherently evil and cannot be capable of good. Gina took issue with this on two fronts. First, she tried to argue that there's no point in highlighting that not all drow really like or love Lolth. They still worship and sacrifice to her and revere her and exalt her. It doesn't matter if they're doing it under threat of death and the death of their loved ones, they are choosing to engage in the acts of Lolth. Wants them to do, therefore they are evil. I countered with the argument that not only does revere and exalt specifically denote a loving respect for Lolth, being oppressed and contributing tribute to Lolth under threat of duress isn't reverence or worship, it's oppression and subjugation. People who live under dictatorships don't revere or exalt their dictators, and most would escape if given the opportunity. In my opinion, if someone is forced to do something unlawful under threat of death and the death of their loved ones, from something that will actually follow through, but it's not the fault of the person who did the act, it's the fault of the individual who forced them to carry out those horrible acts. It's inaccurate to paint all drow as being demon-loving evil worshippers, since many do it under threat or harm. If any of you have seen Deltarune Chapter 2, the Snowgrave ending, bit of a spoiler alert, that's kind of what you do with Noelle, where you basically force her to. It's not Noelle being evil, it's the player being evil to Noelle. Second, she argued that if they're not evil, then they're not drow. She argued that drow are not a race, and they are elves, and drow are evil because, and are drow because they're evil. If they weren't drow, they'd literally not be drow. I countered with a literal Forgotten Realms wiki that says they're a sub-race and also, in my personal opinion, elves are more of an ethnic group, and then you have races under that umbrella of elf, such as Wood Elves, Sea Elves, High Elves, Dark Elves, etc. I argued that it was like saying all Asians are the same, when in reality you have a diverse group under the Asian umbrella: Korean, Japanese, Taiwanese, Vietnamese, etc. I also highlighted how problematic it is to assume negative behavior to being inherent to a race. It's like going all black people are criminals. Her response was to be like, why are you simping for the drow? It's like saying we should be sensitive to World War II Germans because they weren't all loyal to Hitler. If I ran this game and a drow asked for help to overthrow an evil tyrant, then it would be a trap because drow are evil. She also kept asserting that drow are not a race. Annoyed, I responded with something along the lines of, I'm not buying into your bullshit that drow are automatically inherently evil and based on the racist ideals you operate on. I have no fucking interest in playing in a game run by you where entire races are just default evil inherently. Her response was basically to say, yeah, I'm racist to drow, I'm also very racist to Yuan-Ti, orcs, giants, ogres, slimes, undead, etc. She lists a whole bunch of races and monster categories, but interesting lists 2 very real races and says her justification is that all the races, except the 2 real-world races, but that her racism towards them is still valid, because a Minotaur is going to be upset over my racism towards it because it's not real. She then told me that maybe I should start simping towards the North Sentinelese, or some other group of real people who hate me rather than fictional groups that hate me. She argued that all members of various indigenous groups hate you and you shouldn't simp for them because they just want to kill you. Being of indigenous Canadian descent, this white woman saying this shit really upset me. So that really rubbed me the wrong way, and I told the GM that So that really rubbed me the wrong way, and I told the GM I was not comfortable playing with her, and left. Not only did I take issue with the fact that she was asserting that an entire race is just inherently evil, but that she kept saying that her racism is justified and correct, and her defense was to start being racist to real-world groups. Okay, so D&D. It's a game where you can pretty much do anything. Anything can happen, anything could be the truth, so why would you try and suggest that all of a race is evil when literally anything's possible? Why would you put limits on infinite possibilities? That's dumb. Player upset that he couldn't reach his level 20 goal of killing the entire party. So just a little background first. I've been playing D&D for about 7+ years. I recently moved to a different country for graduate school, and was lucky enough to find a group of friends to play D&D with. Everyone in this group, with the exception of me and the DM, are all new players. That's no problem for me though. I'm a pretty patient person, and I like helping people learn their characters and the game. Unfortunately, some new players don't exactly grasp the concept of D&D. This story involves one of those new players. This player opted to play an evil Unity, I'm not really sure, trickster cleric. This character is not the type of Unity that looks human, no, she's the type of who's literally half snake. Her backstory is basically that she is part of a cult who worships an evil demigod, hell-bent on overthrowing all the other gods. She was disguised as a nun for the goddess of love, while secretly recruiting people to her cult. The party starts in a big city during one of its festivals. This is a type of city that values peace and cooperation over all else. They have guards but no jail, so they kick people out and ban them from the city if there being problems. Yanti Cleric is in the city secretly recruiting people by handing out flyers for the goddess of love. During her time in the city, the player was required to make several rolls to hide the fact that she was a Yanti and recruit people for her cult. The party all meets up through various means and decides to work together to compete in a tournament the city is hosting to earn some gold. We win the tournament and the party decides to party together afterwards with our new britches. My character, a rogue, and another character, druid, I'm smart, noticed guards secretly following our party. We found it strange, but decided to just keep quiet and see what happens. Eventually the guards approach us and take us in for questioning. The commander of the guards agrees and then, accuses her of being a Yuan-Ti and gives her a clear warning not to cause any more trouble in the city. She agrees and they let everyone go. Right afterwards, she goes back to recruiting people. A few days pass where we could do a side quest and various other things in the city, none of which is important for the story. It is important to note, however, that Yanti Cleric is being highly suspicious and generally untrustworthy. She doesn't interact much with the party, except to make a joke or two to act more suspicious. On one of the days in the city, my character, Rogue, who is secretly part of an assassin's guild, gets a message that a hit has been put on Yanti Cleric. I realize out of character that it's probably the commander of the guild who placed the hit, so my Rogue sneaks to Yanti Cleric's room in the middle of the night and kills her. The next day, the party finds a dead body and alerts the commander. The commander explains that Yanti Cleric is part of an evil cult and was recruiting people for it in the city. Despite knowing all this, the party decides to revive her using a high-level cleric. The session ends with a reviving spell working. The DM advises the player to make a backup character just in case. Next session starts with then Yanti Cleric alive. The party interrogates her about her relation to the cult and her intentions. She shows no signs of wanting to leave the cult and tries to lie her way out of trouble. The party has high enough insight to see past it. After some debate, we decide to kick her out of the city because no one can trust her to be part of a party anymore. My character secretly follows her while the commander leads her out of the city. Our characters get in a small fight once she's alone, and my character ends up killing her again. My character drags her body into a river, so no one finds it. Player is obviously pissed that his character is dead. I feel super guilty about it, so I have a talk with the DM about the situation. The DM agrees that he fucked up by having my character target another, and that he should have thought more about it. The player is still pissed, and it's then that I learn he's not pissed because another party member killed his character. He's pissed because he had plans to become the BBEG at level 20 and kill the party. The DM specifically told the player during character creation that his Yuan-Ti was probably not going to last long considering her alignment and goals. The DM even admitted that if my character didn't kill Yuan-Ti Cleric, he was going to have a command to kill her once they got out of the gate of the city. So the player starts messaging me after the session, asking why I killed his character. He says all these things about how he didn't get to enact any of his plans. He complains that his evil cult character couldn't even get a cool death or take any of the other characters with her. Then he threatens to make a new character and not tell the DM anything about her so that no one can mess up his plans. I tell him that will get him kicked from a table. I also do apologize for killing his character, but also point out it's hard to play an evil character in a not evil party, and D&D isn't about player characters competing with each other, it's supposed to be a cooperative game. I'd be sure to add in that the DM admitted he made a mistake about putting characters against each other like that. He ignores everything I say, and still seems determined to screw over the party for one reason or another. I tell the DM about this, and he agrees to never let new players make evil characters again. The player has yet to get back to the DM about what he wants to do, so I guess we'll see if he comes back to the table or not. Neither of us have ever encountered this problem before. Personally, I think we all made mistakes in the situation, but I don't feel bad anymore knowing the player was planning to kill everyone from the start anyway.